Why do we put hundreds, sometimes even thousands of hours into a game that doesn't really have a lot of endgame content? Well, believe it or not, there's a lot left to do in Warframe after you beat all the story quests. There are three main things I want to get into, even though realistically, there are probably endless reasons to keep playing this game. But first, I want to say this video took a lot more time than I expected to make. So if you like it, leave a like and subscribe. And if you want to see more videos like this has been really fun to make so far. And just let me know in the comments if you want to see more like it. All right. Now, the first thing I want to get into is the randomly generated tile sets in the missions. Now, it's probably not surprising that the missions are randomly generated each time. Digital Extremes did a really good job making the missions always feel unique and different, even if the objective is the same. For example, when the new Nidus Prime came out, I played a capture mission over 600 times, grinding for the relics I needed. And throughout the runs, I never really got bored of the mission. I did eventually get bored of trying to grind out the specific relics I was looking for, but the missions itself never suffered from feeling too repetitive. Along with the randomly generated tile sets, there's a ton of different missions to run in many different environments, making each planet's missions feel different and unique. Now that makes the first big achievement of filling out and beating every node in the star chart a fun challenge. But the first main thing that could turn you away is the lack of endgame. Now, there are a lot of things they added to the game that were intended to be the quote endgame content, though most of them really can't be called that, such as the Steel Path. So, the Steel Path is unlocked by completing the star chart. Now, you might say, wow, Steel Path sounds really fun, really cool, and is probably really interesting and challenging. And to that I say, I wish. All the Steel Path is an exact replica of the regular star chart, but all the enemies' levels are raised by 100. So a previous level 15 enemy is now level 115. That's all there really is to the Steel Path. Yeah, it's kind of fun every now and then, but it's not really viable to be called endgame content. What I consider the closest to endgame content are the arbitration missions. They offer their own drop table with mods and other goodies that drop solely from them, as well as a type of currency you can trade with the Arbiters of Hexus to get other items such as the galvanized mods and some cosmetics. This mode offers a challenge, and it's harder than Steel Path in my opinion, mainly due to the fact that there are no traditional revives, and it encourages you to use other weapons and frames than you might already use due to the fact that each mission buffs different frames and weapons. But this section, for the most part, is just a stall for the fact that there really is no end game mission content. But there are Kuvalicious and the new Sisters of Parvos. But like I said, it does offer the arbitration missions and the Steel Path, so that's something to look forward to after completing the star chart. The next point I want to get into is equipment. There's so many different weapons and frames, like we're talking a lot here. My quick Google search told me there are about 340-ish weapons in the game. Now this leads to the question of how different do they feel from each other, because having a lot of weapons is different from having unique weapons. And my answer to that is, for the most part, they feel pretty unique and different. But with that many, there are quite a few that still feel very similar and bland. I'm currently in the process of trying to rank up my mastery rank, and I've used about 100 or so different weapons, and there are only a few that I absolutely hated, so that's a good sign. For the most part, the ones I didn't like were either trying too hard to be unique that they felt just kind of meh, or too simple to the point where they just kind of fell into the background. Now, a big focus with this part isn't the weapons, but more the warframes. There are 80 frames in the game currently. Well, 81 if you count Excalibur Prime, but he's not available to farm or obtain in any way. Regarding the frames, there are no two that feel even remotely close to each other, except for, the regular frames and their prime counterparts. This means that there really is a frame for just about anyone. There are frames I didn't like, but that was mainly because they didn't fit my playstyle. No frame I've used I've had a bad time playing or, hated playing them. It's more of I like this frame more, so I'll use him instead. Each frame has its place, and there's no one frame fits all for every mission. For example, if I run a defense mission, I like to run Zephyr or Titania for their respective crowd control abilities. If I'm going survival, I'll take Necros with me, and if I'm going to a place where I know I'm going to take a lot of damage, I take Wukong due to the fact his Cloudwalker ability regens health, or Rhino for his Iron Skin. There are a lot of different situations where different Warframes will perform better. Like, you're not going to bring Loki to a defense or survival. He can't take hits from the waves of enemies. But you would take him to a spy or a rescue mission. Now, getting new frames takes time, but there are several that are really quick and easy. It's just a matter of doing assassination missions. For example, the Jackal, in his mission, it takes almost no time at all. You run it maybe 10 times at the most, and you'll have all the parts for Rhino, which is probably the best early game frame to have. Now, there are more grindy frames for sure, but there are a lot of them that are fairly quick to grind out the parts for. After that, it just takes some time in the foundry. And I can guarantee you'll find new frames you like, and some you don't, but it could surprise you at which ones just kind of take hold and click. For weapon choice, there are a lot of them, so you have your work cut out for you. Between all the rifles, shotguns, snipers, bows, pistols, flamethrowers, swords, knives, and all the other types that I was just too lazy to write down, I'm sure you'll find a loadout that's good for you. I personally have like 3 or 4 primary weapons I use and switch out between fairly regularly, depending on what the mission needs. And that's about it as far as equipment is concerned. Just go out and try everything you can. It'll take a lot of time, but it's kind of fun to see how all the different frames and weapons handle. As a kind of afterthought to go in this section is fashion frame. Now this is where someone takes a bunch of cosmetics and color schemes and makes their frames look as good as they can. Where this is not my kind of thing and I don't really understand how to do it, nor do I really care to learn, but I can admit some of the stuff people do with their frames is incredible. Now, the last part is overpowering your loadout, so you're as powerful as possible. Now, I'm sure we all have that part in our brains where we want to max out the damage we can do and the damage that we can take. Warframe lets you have almost limitless weapon and Warframe builds with the mod system. I couldn't find a total amount of mods in the game, so just as an estimation, we're gonna say there are a lot of mods. And with the addition of broken catalysts and reactors, as well as the use of Forma, your modding limitations only come down to the amount of mod slots on a weapon. Right now, my personal long-term goal in the game is to collect every mod. Now, I know that goal isn't even remotely reasonable, heck, it might even be impossible, but it's all in the name of improving my builds. So how do we get the most out of our weapons? Well, that's up to you. Like I said, you can make a limitless amount of builds. From crit to status to elemental to IPS, there's a lot of things that go into modding, and the best way to get the most out of your weapons is to just experiment. Modding is probably one of the most in-depth and complicated parts of Warframe, and I'm probably not really qualified to talk about how to mod or what kind of builds to go for. But there are endless sources to go to learn how to build or even just copy-paste the builds. My favorite place for that is Overframe, and I'll leave a link to that in the description. It has everything you'll need to make some good builds. Alright, that's about all I have for this video. I think Warframe is an amazing game. From its movement, to its gunplay, to its level design, it's just overall amazing. And to top it off, it's a free-to-play game. So, if you're watching this and you haven't played it, I'd highly recommend going and giving it a try. And hey, I'll see y'all on the flip side.